My name is Sandra Brown. I have been married for 5 years, and I have a 3-year-old daughter. My husband is very dedicated to his work and never takes a day off, even when he is not feeling well. Thanks to this, I think we are able to live a peaceful life. I have a younger sister who is 3 years younger than me. She got married about 3 years ago but had trouble conceiving a child. Both my husband and I were worried about her as she seemed a bit down. Then, we received the news that she was pregnant. From that moment until the birth, we supported her as a couple. When we heard the baby was born and went to the hospital, my sister's husband was there and looked very happy. "Oh, where's the baby?" Upon entering the hospital room, Tom was the first to speak up. Indeed, there was no sign of the baby next to Amy. Yeah, this hospital takes the babies to the nursery to give the moms a break. They only bring the babies for feeding times. Ah, that must be convenient. The food is delicious, and they take good care of you. I'm really glad I chose this hospital. Maybe I should have my second child here. Sis, are you planning on having more kids? Well, it would be sad for her to be an only child, wouldn't it? I said this while looking at my husband, but he didn't seem to hear me and was not looking at me. His attention was entirely on my sister. Amy really did a great job. She carried the baby for 9 months. I've seen how hard it's been for her and am just filled with gratitude. My sister's husband, Fred, is a business owner. Because of his busy schedule, he was hardly able to care for my sister. It must have been very stressful for her, not being able to see her husband much, even though he was there. That's true, Fred, you were hardly ever by Amy's side. This remark made me wonder because it sounded like he was criticizing Fred. I'm sorry. I was so caught up in work. No matter how busy work is, you should be there for your wife, especially during pregnancy. It's going to get even more challenging with child rearing. However, when I was pregnant, he left everything to me. I thought, something is odd. Amy really did a great job. It must have been tough. Tom said so. I understood he was trying to be considerate of my sister, but it made me feel uneasy. Then, it was time for nursing, and the baby was brought from the nursery. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the baby brought in by the nurse. My husband had a big smile on his face looking at the baby. Fred did too, but it seemed more than that. I thought, why? He didn't seem this happy or moved when I gave birth. He didn't show this much emotion for our daughter. It felt like he was moved as if it was his own child. However, he didn't show this much emotion towards our actual daughter. Far from being moved, he hardly came to the hospital due to work and barely visited after she was born. I wondered if he didn't want to see his child even though he was busy. Other dads came every day to take photos and laugh with their wives. Our home had none of that. I thought. But now, what's with my husband? He was acting like a husband to my sister, even though Fred was there. It was as if he was taking Fred's place. Watching my husband, memories came flashing back to me. It started way before we learned of my sister's pregnancy. Whenever Fred mentioned he had to work late, Tom would also have to work late. Whenever Fred had a business trip, Tom would have one too. The timing always seemed too coincidental. When both our husbands were away on business, I suggested going out with my sister, but she declined, claiming she was busy. I wondered if she preferred to spend her free time with friends. However, when my husband returned home, he was unusually kind to me. He would bring home sweets he never usually bought or offer to massage my shoulders when I mentioned they were sore. But it never went beyond that. Doubts arose, but I dismissed them as overthinking. However, watching the two in front of me, those doubts resurfaced. In my mind, I kept repeating, something's not right, something's not right. He's not drinking well. Amy was breastfeeding openly, despite her brother-in-law being present. Fred looked uncomfortable, as one would expect, not wanting his wife's breasts exposed to even a family member. Yet, Tom looked on happily and naturally. I thought, isn't it normal to be a bit shy or look away? Am I the only one who thinks this way? Watching the baby drinking milk, Tom then asked, "Is this child a boy or a girl?" Indeed, I hadn't asked about the baby's gender yet. A boy. A boy? He's going to be a handsome guy. Tom exclaimed, pleased. I wondered if he had always wanted a son. Unexpectedly, I blurted out, "Yes, he looks just like you." What? The atmosphere felt frozen. Yet, it was Tom who broke the ice. "Silly, what are you talking about? There's no way he looks like me." "Exactly. That's impossible." "Is that so?" "I think he resembles you quite a bit, especially around the eyes." "That's impossible. Don't say weird things." "Oh, really?" Despite their outright denial, something about their reactions seemed suspicious. Fred, upon hearing such remarks, scrutinized the baby's face closely, clearly deep in thought. Following this, Tom's return home became increasingly late. "Why are you always so late? Where have you been?" Harboring nothing but suspicion, I asked him about it. Unashamedly, my husband replied, "I'm going over to Amy's to see the baby." "Huh? Aren't you supposed to be busy with work?" "Yeah, busy. And yet you have the time to go there?" "You always said you were too busy with work to help with our child." "Our child is a girl. Amy is a boy. There's a big difference." "So, he's visiting because it's a boy?" "That's a strange reason. Don't you think Amy gets tired with your frequent visits?" "No way, she's happy to have me over." "Oh, so, Amy is." "Hey, don't speak ill of Amy." Despite my husband's defensive attitude, I thought he wouldn't be able to visit as often once my sister was discharged from the hospital. However, it seems he's been visiting daily. "Did you go see Amy and her baby again today?" "Yeah, I did." You have to see him every day, you know. They grow up so fast at this stage. You never cared about our child's growth like this. It's only natural to be interested, even if it's my sister-in-law's child. It's weird that you don't want to go see them. Really? But don't you think you're going a bit too often? Are you jealous? That's pathetic. It's strange not to want to see a child that my sister went through so much trouble to have. Justifying his actions, my husband seemed to have a reason for everything. But when I saw lipstick on his shirt and his pants worn inside out, my trust faded. I thought, he's cheating. But with whom? Is he meeting another woman under the guise of visiting my sister? Or could it be my sister after giving birth? No, that would be too cruel. Yet, all signs inevitably pointed towards my sister. I was losing my mind. Then, I received a call from my sister's husband, Fred. "Sandra, I need to talk to you about something. Can you spare some time?" His voice sounded serious, so I went to meet him. "Sorry to make you come out here. I thought it would be bad if your husband was at your house." So, Fred had the same suspicions? "Amy and your husband have been acting strange." "My husband too? What do you mean?" "Ever since she was discharged, your husband has been coming to our house. Whenever I get home, he's there." I was happy at first, thinking he really cared about our child. But it seems like there's more to it. "What do you mean?" "When I come home, it feels like they just separated. There's this awkwardness. Your husband says he's just there to see the baby, but his gaze always ends up on Amy. I wouldn't mind if it was just about the baby, but it doesn't seem like it." It turns out Fred noticed too. I just listened without responding. He even comes over when I have days off now. I was shocked. I thought he was working those days. He seems to be avoiding my gaze, like they're hiding something. I thought. I understand that feeling. He's really good with the baby, which surprised me because I didn't expect all parents to be like that. But my husband has never changed a diaper or fed a baby's milk. He'd make a face whenever I asked. Recently, I overheard them talking while changing the baby's diaper. They sounded so close. Not like that, you're so clumsy. Sorry, Amy, I'll get better. It sounded too intimate. I thought. They're definitely in a relationship. I hate to think this way, but I can't help but suspect. Do you feel the same? I thought. Of course, I do. I'm convinced of it. I think you're right to suspect, but without proof, there's not much point in speculating. You're right. Then, how about hiring a private investigator? A private investigator? Yes, I'll even pay for half. If they find nothing, then we'll be fine. I see. Yes, that makes sense. So, we decided to hire a private investigator to gather evidence of whether Tom and Amy were having an affair. About a week later, a large envelope from the detective agency arrived. Inside, as I had suspected, were the details of their affair. I wasn't even angry, just thought to myself. Bingo. But now, there was much to do. I immediately contacted Fred and set our plan into motion. The following weekend, with my husband in tow, we visited Amy's house. Sis, here to see the baby? That's unusual. Tom visits often, but I thought you weren't interested. Where's the baby? Sleeping right now. Well, let's go in then. Please, come in. Upon entering the living room, Fred was there, offering a polite nod, which could have been mistaken for a simple greeting. Coffee okay? You drink coffee, right, Tom? Yeah, I'll help. Oh, then let me. No need, Fred. Just sit down. It'll be faster if I help out. I thought. What does that mean? He knows his way around here too well. Watching Tom's actions, I felt anger rising. At home, he never made coffee himself, always expecting it to be served. Yet, the chatter from the kitchen sounded like that of a happily married couple, causing both me and Fred to frown. Once the coffee was served, Amy broached the subject. What brings you here today? It can't just be to see the baby, right? I thought. Correct. Exactly, Amy. Exactly, actually, we have a wonderful present for you and Tom. What? For me and Fred, you mean? No, for you and Tom. I then spread out the documents from the detective agency on the table, displaying photos and detailed reports of Tom and Amy's meetings. What is this? What's the meaning of this? Then Fred shouted. Were you two having an affair? I thought. Perfect. Just as planned. With the evidence laid out, both were shocked. Tom, what's this about? What's wrong with being close? We're just in-laws. But the issue was the nature of their closeness. The photos clearly showed intimate moments that no mere in-laws would share. Look closer. In this photo, we're just leaning in together because we are both looking at the baby. And here, it might look like we're hugging, but actually, right, a cockroach appeared and Amy got scared, so she clung to me. Such blatant lies. He has a story for every single photo, but expects me to believe them? But why conduct such an investigation in the first place? Don't you trust me and your own sister? I thought. Trust you? No way. I've always treated your sister like my real sister, and I've taken care of her. How can you think it's okay to suspect us like this? Don't you think it's unfair to your sister being doubted like this? He was the one doing unfairly. How dare he continue to lie at this stage? What are you talking about? You say my sister is to be pitted, but weren't you both involved in the affair? So, you're both equally to blame, aren't you? I haven't cheated. I just explained the reason behind each of these photos, didn't I? And yet, you still don't believe me? What kind of logic is that? Who would believe such an ad hoc story behind these lovey-dovey photos? Whether you believe it or not is up to you, but do you intend to ruin my sister-in-law's marriage as well? As Tom spoke with apparent triumph, Fred, finally losing his patience, produced an envelope labeled DNA test results. Actually, I've suspected you and Amy were having an affair too. So, I prepared this evidence. I was willing to seal it if you had admitted earlier, but it seems there's no need for that now. A DNA test. You mean, you don't believe the child is mine? Tom's face turned pale. This was the look of a man completely cornered. Amy, silent and downcast, seemed to realize the gravity of their situation. We used a sample from the child and a toothpick you used at our house for the test. And here are the results. The document showed a 99.9% probability of parentage. This is. Meaning, he's your child, Tom. That's. I thought it was strange. You visit the child every day. When your own child was born, you chose work over spending time with them, or you'd hang out with friends instead. But with Amy's child, you visited daily. It was more about being with Amy than seeing the baby, wasn't it? That's not true. I can't believe this. Despite the overwhelming evidence, Tom continued to deny it. I have a loving family. There's no way anything could happen with Amy. A loving family? Where? What are you talking about, Sandra? Feels like the first time you've called me by my name in years. I only love you. I would never cheat. Are you going to believe some paper over me? Yes, I believe in the power of science over the words of a worthless man. Who are you calling worthless? No, I really do love you. I'm not interested in any other woman. At that moment, Amy burst into tears. That's terrible. Sandra Brown thought. What in the world? Both Fred and I were shocked, but Tom was just as surprised. What's wrong? Amy cried. It's terrible. I love Tom, and he loves me. He was happy when I got pregnant. He came every day, and we loved each other daily. And now you're choosing your family over me? Amy. We promised not to break our families. Amy, how did it come to this with my husband? I was struggling with not being able to have a child. You and Tom were so supportive. Tom visited daily. Fred was always busy, so Tom listened to my concerns. That's when I felt he was the one I could really trust. And that led to you giving yourself to him? Yes. I was happy to have someone so concerned about me. And you slept with him? Yes. You fell for this scumbag's tricks? Yes, I knew it was wrong and thought about breaking it off. But we were too physically compatible. I couldn't do it. Amy, while speaking, seemed somewhat pleased. Tom, listening to her, appeared somewhat proud. I thought. What the heck of these two damn. So, what's your plan now? I believe marriage and love are separate. I want to continue my marriage with Fred and keep seeing Tom. I thought. Are you a monkey? A dog? Just a bitch. Despite being my sister, I couldn't agree with Amy's logic, feeling nothing but disbelief at her foolishness. And you? Tom, smiling happily, shared the same sentiment. With Amy, it's just a physical relationship. Considering we have a child together, I thought maybe we don't need to continue our marital life. So, why not maintain this relationship without any of us getting divorced? Wouldn't that make us all happy? I thought. Are they serious? What's going on in their heads? Are they blooming flowers or breeding maggots in there? Despite the sheer selfishness, I found a strange sense of refreshment in their audacity. I looked at Fred, who seemed to share a similar sentiment, only capable of sighing in response. Well, I'm definitely not interested in continuing this relationship. I'll be filing for divorce, so you all do as you please. Fred quickly agreed. Yeah, I feel the same. Living with such a bitch is impossible for me. I'm divorcing too. What do you mean by such a bitch? Sorry, my true feelings slipped out. But honestly, I can't raise a child that's not mine with the money I've earned. It's utterly unreasonable, so divorce is the only option for me. That settles it then. You all can do whatever you want. Despite expecting satisfaction from both, they vehemently protested. I never said I wanted a divorce. What? If we divorce, how am I supposed to live? Here comes the most self-centered statement ever. Exactly, because my salary is nothing more than a drop in the bucket. And all this time, I've been content with that because I had you, with your high income, to rely on. No, you just didn't want to deal with interpersonal relationships and depended on my salary. Well, yes, you could say that. But what about Amy's child? If she divorces Fred, then the child will be left without a father, won't he? What are you talking about? The real father is right here. I don't want that either. I don't want to marry Tom. The idea of divorcing Fred, who has a high income, is absolutely unbearable to me, and Tom, with his low income, doesn't even register on my radar. So, it seems Tom isn't keen on prioritizing me, nor is he interested in marriage. Quite the candid pair they are. But really, there's no need for me to bother with their self-centered opinions. I can't continue this relationship anymore. After saying this, Fred placed the divorce papers on the table and left the house. I did the same. I presented the prepared divorce papers. Submit them to the office. If you don't, I'll have to hire a lawyer. You probably can't afford to fight this legally, but I can afford to hire a lawyer. No. I won't divorce. Like it or not, Fred has already left the house. You've brought this upon yourself. I won't divorce either. If that's how you feel, then fight it with a lawyer. Though I doubt you can. Saying this, I left my sister's house. However, my return was not to the home shared with my husband, but rather to an apartment I had rented immediately after receiving the investigation report from the detective. I swore to start a new life there with my child. Despite this, the two kept contact and caused disturbances. Eventually, after much noise, they submitted the divorce papers once they realized further resistance was futile. They seemed to think that by submitting the divorce papers, everything would be over and there would be no further claims for compensation. But life isn't that sweet. Having been cheated on, I needed them to feel the same or even greater pain. Thus, I demanded compensation and child support from my husband. They both wailed miserably, but I was indifferent to their cries. Fred and I came to an agreement where he wouldn't demand compensation in exchange for not paying child support. However, this was only regarding Amy. I made sure to claim compensation from Tom. When Amy was in economic hardship, she turned to Tom in tears. Tom then foolishly boasted, "Leave it to me." As a result, they found themselves burdened with a massive debt. Observing their actions, it was noted that they had borrowed money from consumer finance services to pay for both of their compensation charges. However, the borrowed money had to be repaid, leading to a situation where they were financially strangled. Subsequently, the two divorced individuals ended up living together, as if it was the natural course of action. But, with a newborn to care for, Amy claimed she couldn't work, leaving Tom to work alone, struggling to support their difficult life. They even struggled to afford milk and diapers, and Amy would often suggest that Tom should find a higher-paying job. However, Tom, who wasn't good at social interactions, valued his personal relationships at work too much to consider changing jobs. "If you won't change jobs, at least try doing some part-time work." She would tell this to Tom daily. "Part-time work would affect my day job. Mother milk stops coming out at this rate. Then you should work." Your sister, Sandra, worked even after having her child. Don't compare me to my sister. I've decided not to work while my child is young. A happy childhood means having a mother around all the time. But we can't do anything without money. Then you should work. Their nightly arguments led to complaints from neighbors. With no way to repay the borrowed money, they eventually faced legal action. Unable to afford a lawyer, they turned to their parents for help. However, both sets of parents refused, stating that since they chose to be together despite the affair, they should handle their problems themselves. Thus, the daily battles continue, filled only with shouting matches and growing hatred. On the other hand, since the ordeal, I found solace in Amy's ex-husband, Fred. Over time, We became good confidants for each other and eventually recognized our need for one another, starting a relationship. My daughter has also grown fond of Fred, and we are considering starting a life together.